Bienvenidos a otra edición de Mobile Talks, organizado por Mobile World Capital Barcelona. Muchas gracias por venir todos aquí en un día de condiciones tan grises. And thanks very much for our keynote speakers and the members of the panel. Thank you very much for being part of this project. So, mi nombre es Esteban Redolfi, soy el director del programa. Sorry about the first slide. Soy el director del programa Digital Future Society de la Fundación. Este programa lo que busca es crear una conversación entre expertos en tecnología, corporaciones, gobiernos, grandes mastodontes tecnológicos, emprendedores y científicos sobre el impacto de la tecnología en diferentes áreas de nuestra sociedad. Esta conversación no solamente es para ponernos de acuerdo sobre los desafíos que vienen en el futuro, sino también para crear una sociedad mucho más inclusiva, justa y equilibrada. Este programa lo lanzamos hace mes y medio y consta básicamente de 3 grandes partes. En la primera parte nosotros exploramos estas diferentes áreas junto a entidades internacionales de todo el mundo. Por ejemplo, en la parte de Explore, que nosotros llamamos así, hemos creado un think tank con 18 entidades en las que participan miembros del World Economic Forum, Naciones Unidas, Comisión Europea, gobiernos de Asia, Europa y América, y ahora últimamente África, y grandes corporaciones tecnológicas como Facebook o la gran asociación de telecomunicaciones GSMA, que sabéis que organiza el Mobile World Congress. La segunda pata del proyecto la llamamos Experiment, y básicamente lo que coge el think tank es explorar, entender cuáles son los desafíos y proponer soluciones. En la segunda parte lo que hacemos es pilotar estas soluciones y probar si tienen algún sentido. Muchas veces los trabajos académicos y teóricos pueden tener ciertos desajustes con lo que es la realidad. Aquí los probamos y devolvemos los resultados al think tank. La tercera pata, que llamamos Empower, lo que busca es compartir y abrir todo ese conocimiento, esa metodología, esos casos de uso que va a crear tanto el think tank como el lab con todos los ciudadanos, con el resto de la sociedad, para que puedan participar de esa conversación. Entonces, dentro de este marco, hemos creado el Mobile Talk de hoy, que es un primer paso para ir abriendo este diálogo en la que vamos a explorar cómo las tecnologías emergentes pueden ayudar a los gobiernos a ser muchísimo más ágiles, más efectivos, más eficientes y que puedan construir un marco mucho más propicio para aprovechar lo mejor de la tecnología y minimizar los efectos negativos que puede tener. Las temáticas que tenemos dentro del Digital Future Society son 4. La primera, y es lo que nos centra hoy, es Public Innovation. En esta temática lo que vamos a explorar es justamente cómo los gobiernos pueden reaccionar de manera más ágil y de manera interactuar con el ecosistema tecnológico y potenciar los efectos positivos de la tecnología, minimizando los negativos. En el segundo tema, Digital Trust, vamos a estudiar, entender y proponer soluciones para crear un entorno mucho más ético y de confianza en todas las plataformas digitales de hoy en día. Sabéis que hay tremendos retos ahora mismo donde no hay respuesta de quién es el amo de los datos, cómo podemos controlar qué utilizan de nuestros datos o no en diferentes plataformas. El tercer tema, inclusión y empoderamiento ciudadano, lo que buscamos es dar herramientas a todos los miembros de la sociedad para que puedan aprovechar al máximo los avances tecnológicos de la revolución que estamos viviendo. Ahora mismo se están creando grandes monopolios en distintas partes gracias al dominio sobre ciertas tecnologías. No está pasando a un tejido mucho más complejo en la realidad que está compuesto, por ejemplo, de pymes, si vamos al económico. La idea es que, gracias al trabajo del think tank y el laboratorio, encontrar fórmulas para que esa tecnología llegue a todo el mundo. Y por último, Equitable Growth lo que busca es eliminar las gaps o las barreras que ahora mismo se están presentando, la exclusión de ciertos colectivos de esta revolución tecnológica, que muchas veces cuando pensamos en tecnología, pensamos en un gap generacional, pero no es tan solo esto, sino también gap geográfico o económico o simplemente de acceso por localización. No es lo mismo vivir en un área rural que en una gran ciudad, por ejemplo, simplemente para poner un caso. Este programa, Digital Future Society, tiene diferentes etapas. Empezamos un primer summit con 70 expertos en tecnología y sociedad durante el marco del Smart City en el mes de noviembre. En él analizamos estos retos y comenzamos a bajar las temáticas para comenzar ese think tank que está trabajando ya desde hace más de un mes. Y el próximo gran momento del programa es el 24 de febrero, el día antes del Mobile World Congress, domingo, donde más de 500 expertos van a reunirse en Barcelona de todo el mundo para analizar justamente estas temáticas y publicar los primeros resultados, tanto del think tank como para iniciar las tareas del laboratorio. Si os queréis apuntar. Entonces, ahora paso más a los temas de gobernanza. Tenéis wifi aquí, si queréis conectaros. La wifi es wifi-CCCB. Tenéis que entrar, navegar y poner usuario y clave en las que salen aquí. Y luego, si queréis hacer algún tipo de pregunta para los panelistas o para la ponente que va a hablar a continuación, podéis utilizar Slido. Es una plataforma que podéis entrar a través del navegador. Simplemente entráis a la dirección que es www.slide.do, y allí poner el código #MobileTalks. Con esto podéis compartir vuestra pregunta y nosotros veremos que esto llegue al panel de las preguntas más o mejor votadas o las más veces votadas. Entonces, sin más, ahora agradeciendo otra vez a los ponentes, voy a presentaros. I would like to introduce Christina Patsioura. She is a lead analyst in emerging tech at GSMA. You know, GSMA is the biggest telco association in the world and organizers of Mobile World Congress. So she will explain where they are right now.
Buenas tardes a todos. That's all the Spanish for now. So my name is Christina. As Esteban said, I work with GSMA, the Global Association of Telecom Operators. And I would like to introduce the two topics of this event, which is blockchain and artificial intelligence, two topics that are being discussed quite a lot across the world, in companies, in associations, in society in general. And first of all, understand why these two themes are being discussed that much. What are these? Whether we can understand the potential of these themes, whether it's justified or perhaps in some cases it is, say, overhyped, as we say. Talk a bit about what is happening across Europe in the various countries, as well as at the higher level when it comes to initiatives from the European Union, the European Commission, and so on, with a specific angle of how these two technologies or set of technologies are combined with public sector and governance. As I told you before, I lead the research around emerging technologies. Can you hear me well? Yeah. Within GSMA Intelligence. So GSMA Intelligence is the market research and data analysis arm within GSMA, so within the association. And this is a sample of the work we are doing in the three main streams, in which our team consists of around 100 people. So what we do is around the data analysis, around mobile operators related data that feeds into the members, as well as to our own customers. By members, I mean the telecom operators of the world. We do research, so publish reports, talk with companies who are doing these things. So, for example, for my work, I recently published a report around blockchain for IoT. So I had to talk with relevant companies, do a bit of research, and so on and so forth. And in the context of these events, in this particular event, I would like to share the view I have obtained from all of this work in the topics of blockchain and artificial intelligence. But let's first start with providing some definitions so that we make sure we are all on the same page. So blockchain is a very complicated thing. I believe that very few people really understand how it works, let alone they can make it work. But if we are to explain it in a few words, we would say it's a way to organize systems, so computer systems, in a network of nodes. So nodes, as you see, that sit in these networks, nodes can be users with their computers. It can be devices, sensors, other systems like enterprise systems. It can also be data centers. And what these nodes are doing in this network is exchange data in the form of transactions. So in the form of give and take. And why blockchain or blockchains? Because blockchain is just one type of these many technologies called distributed ledger technologies. Why these things are so interesting and say so promising is because they have certain features that make them more beneficial to use for transactions. And these features have to do that they are not centrally organized, so they do not need a central player to organize and check what is happening, what is doing. That is in very, very simple words put. And the ability of the participants of this network to look back to all of the transactions that have taken place. So they are transparent. They are in general faster than other distributed databases. And although they started with the cryptocurrencies craze, nowadays companies are exploring the potential for real-world applications. And the main benefits or the promised benefits include time and cost savings, increased security, transparency, and increased trust. Now, where do governments come in? So governments started engaging with these blockchain or blockchains because they wanted to understand what lies beneath cryptocurrencies as an alternative way of money. They wanted to understand it, to control it, in some cases even to ban it. But governments, as well as companies, have realized themselves that there is a lot of applications that they can do in order to enable better public services, to deliver services to citizens in a faster, more transparent, more reliable way. And for this reason, there is a lot of innovation happening, particularly across Europe on this area. Just a few examples. So this list is not the full list of applications of blockchains for the public sector. Perhaps the most popular one is e-voting. Lots of trials have happened across Europe and the US as well, and in Russia as well. Identity of citizens, a way to store personal records and do public asset management. Some key examples across Europe. the usual suspects, as we say, are leading. So Estonia and the Nordics, they were the first to, as formal states, to start experimenting and finally applying these technologies. In Spain, the interesting case is all the activities around the so-called Alastria network. In the UK, there is also, from perhaps another perspective, there is also lots of activity happening. And in Sweden, as well as in other places, lots of things are happening there. Now, moving quickly to artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is not new and is not that exciting. It's perhaps the result of continuous improvement in computer science, but is equally important for governments and for the European Union's digital strategy as a whole. Some definitions. Any system that tries to act or behave like a human within computer science can be characterized as artificial intelligence. This is also a vast field of technology. Artificial intelligence can be found in literally any place. So from sectors that are retail, enterprise, or industrial related, to sectors that have to do with governance, with human, with life sciences, literally everywhere. Some examples of applications of artificial intelligence for enhancing public sector systems. This would have to do with streamlining tax authorities' processes, implementing systems to deliver the benefits and to enhance the welfare state services to citizens, as well as obviously to national defense and military applications. Now, when we look at these two topics, I believe we can agree that both of them are a bit discussed too much, let's say. As I told you, artificial intelligence is not new. It has existed, but with the conditions that we now have in the world around technology and around cost efficiency of technology systems, it's now that artificial intelligence can really elevate our capabilities in general, because it's cheaper to do. The algorithms have become smarter, and in general, awareness is increasing. Now, when it comes to blockchain, is an entirely new theme. I believe the technology is currently very immature, so not as advanced as it should be to be adopted at a massive scale. But while artificial intelligence would enable us to do the work we are doing, say, faster and better, blockchain, I would say that would make us think the work we do entirely differently. If the promise of blockchain is to be realized, then the entire relationship of the individual with their data and all of the digital applications they are using would be fundamentally, would have to be rethought. So it's an entirely different thing, and that's why it plays a key role for society. In summary, when it comes to governments and the public sector services and what they need to do in order to advance, it is a very, very diversified situation, and it is always about the very actors of this place, so the policymakers, the leaders, or the people who sit in innovation agencies, of cities, of countries. It's about them, that they know the needs of their communities, the capabilities and the stage of maturity they are, because it's quite different, really. One cannot simply compare the stage that Estonia is with the stage of, say, my home country, Greece, is when it comes to the maturity of digital governance. So I would say it's a continuous process of improvement, but luckily, these new technologies, these new emerging technologies have created a lot of enthusiasm that is so much needed to raise awareness. Thank you very much. Sorry for missing that. Yeah.
Thank you, Christina. We'll start now our roundtable. I'll present a little bit the roundtable and then I'll invite our guests to join. So it's working? Yes. So as Steven explained to you in the beginning, the reason why here today is because we're just launching the think tank of the Digital Future Society. And one of the topics, so within the think tank, we'll be working on 4 main topics, and one of them is public innovation. And this is the event where we're launching the first one. And the title, Where Emergent Tech Meets Government, will be actually one of the priorities for 2019 when we're working on public innovation. So I would like to welcome you all of here today. As Christina already said, there's a lot of things happening around blockchain and artificial intelligence. Also, there's different levels of maturity, and they have been implementing at different speeds at different countries. Although, even if that is the context, there's still a long way to go, and the speakers we invited today will give us different perspectives of what is really happening, and there's some hype, and also where are the opportunities, and where we can bring some changes in the way public services are being delivered. So in order to achieve this, I'd like to invite our 4 speakers to join me here. So we have Christina, Boyd, Ulisses, and Alex. If you can join us. So we'll have to share micros between 2, so there's only 2 micros. Okay, I'll start by introduce you. Okay, so before I introduce, I just want to do a clarification about Slido. So actually what you're going to find in Slido is 3 questions. So it's like a small poll, and that will help us to drive the conversation. So all the questions we have there are related with the conversation we're going to have here today. So it'll be really great if you can give us your input. So it's www.sli.do. And then it's #MobileTalks, no? Okay, it's very simple. You'll find 3 questions, multiple answers. You just have to answer one answer per question, and then we'll use the results to drive our conversation. So before I start, I'll introduce you our guests. So we have Boyd Cohen. Some of you might already know him. He is quite a presence always at Smart City Expo. I've seen him a few times there. So Boyd is an urban strategist focused on urban innovation, entrepreneurship, smart cities, and Internet of Mobility. He has published 3 books on climate capitalism, the emergence of the urban entrepreneur, and post-capitalism entrepreneurship. He is also a professor at the TIADA Business School and a fellow at the Singapore University of Social Science in their FinTech and Blockchain group. And in 2017, co-founded Iomob, a blockchain startup seeking to decentralize the mobility sector by providing an open protocol for the Internet of Mobility. And he's also leading the Blockchain Cities Alliance, and today we'll talk about both this Iomob project, but also the Blockchain Cities Alliance. Then we have Alex Puig. You also might know him. He's the co-founder of Elastic. Founder. Okay, so he's a software R&D engineer and tech entrepreneur. Due to his interest in cryptocurrencies, he founded Digital Currency Summit, a conference aiming to debate about the economic impact of blockchain and decentralized technologies in our society. And his areas of interest are blockchain, DHG, self-sovereign ID, zero-knowledge proof, and tokenomics. You can also explain to us what that means. And he has founded the Alastria blockchain ecosystem, the first national-wide semi-public blockchain platform in Spain, and is now leading the technical team at Caleum Labs, a blockchain consultancy and development firm based in Barcelona. Christina Patsioura already introduced herself a little bit, but just to give you a little bit more background information, she's a technical engineer and leads the emerging technologies research within the GSMA Intelligence, and is developing forward-looking research focused on transformation of TMT industry, and this is technology, media, and telecoms, and wider digital ecosystem. And Christina, as she mentioned as well, she has recently produced a number of reports on IoT and blockchain, 5G devices, smart mobility, artificial intelligence, and so on. So, great expert on this emerging tech. And last but not least, we have Professor Ulisés Cortés with us. He has been a full professor and researcher at the Technical University of Catalonia since 1992, working on several areas of artificial intelligence, like knowledge acquisition and concept formation in knowledge-based systems, as well as on machine learning and in autonomous intelligence agents. And since 2017, he has been the scientific manager of the high-performance artificial intelligence group at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, and is an expert on ethics and artificial intelligence. So I'd like to thank you all to being here with us today and supporting us in launching this new topic that we'll be talking about for the next few months. So just before we start going deep in our conversation, I'd like to ask a common question. So just to introduce you to everyone, to explain what's the relationship of your organizations with emerging tech? Where are they within this ecosystem? So just 1 minute so everyone can position your organizations and what they are doing within the ecosystem.
So I have two organizations, Universidad Politécnica de Catalunya and the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, and of course we are the ship that is leading all the innovation in Catalonia in technical aspects. So basically from nanotechnology to any kind of element of simulation, we are the leader in Catalonia. We are among the best in Europe. So we are the third facility in supercomputing in Europe, and we are the 8th school of computing, number 8 computer school in Europe, and number 25 in the whole world.
Thank you. I mentioned some things previously. Let me add what GSMA as a whole is doing. So GSMA represents the interests of, I think there are more than 700 telecom operators in the world, and add to that around 300-400 other companies within the so-called mobile ecosystem. So smartphone manufacturers, telecom equipment manufacturers, and so on. By represent, I mean it is their voice, but at the same time it has various groups within the organization that work with the members. They bring them together to do trials, to decide on standards, to, in general, point a direction that express the whole sector. So there are various working groups within GSMA. One, for example, is the Internet Group. There are also programs. Another one is the IoT program that engages with blockchain development as well. I can perhaps name a few examples. So members of people from GSMA, for example, are involved in standardization organizations that decide standards on, blockchain, how we can make blockchains interoperable from sector to sector, from cases to cases. So perhaps I can refer to the policy group that monitors telecoms technology policy as well as tax policy. So they are also trying to work and bring together operators with governments and other companies in order to implement the so-called proofs of concept. So early stage projects on the blockchain. Of course, there is GSMA Intelligence that monitors all this space. We do our research, we publish data, we publish reports, and of course, we engage with other companies in events like Mobile World Congress here in Barcelona, but also in other events like the one tonight.
Thank you, Alex. Let's keep it short so we can move on.
We do things. Yeah, basically, it's that's it. Like I'm really so involved in technology. I like technology, so basically, I'm really good at not making money. I do things still people don't want to pay for. So basically, like with every new technology, like right now, a lot of people get paid to talk about blockchain, but not to the blockchain. So we are the guys that we are doing blockchain. Whenever there's a project that has to be developed, they come to us. So besides that, I did last year and many other things, but I'm keep busy with technology.
Good. It's always good to have someone like that as well around.
I won't fix your computer.
Boyd.
Hi. I have two projects related to blockchain. One is called Iomob, and we're building the Internet of Mobility, which works with public transit authorities and private mobility operators to enable seamless, open mobility marketplace in cities. And the second one she already mentioned is Blockchain Cities Alliance, which is an initiative to create a global movement of blockchain enthusiasts and developers to collaborate with researchers and others to actually help smart cities figure out how to embrace and adopt blockchain for more powerful use cases. Actually, Alex is one of our initial co-founders of the BCA as well.
Thank you. And Christina, what I found really interesting is you've been, from your position, you've been looking at what's happening across Europe and also what different governments are doing. So my question is, when you're analyzing this context, do you find more anticipation about the opportunity or reluctance about, not having to engage, avoiding to engage with these technologies because they are feared or technical knowledge or so on? What's happening out there, and how do you see that's a tendency within governments?
At a very high level, I would say that almost all of the discussions I have had as an analyst with companies, so big companies, not only operators, but technology companies, they all say that whenever they have discussions with political leaders, so with governments, they say that there is great fear of new technology within governments, in political leaders, in policymakers as well. I would say that when it comes to actual implementations or, say, the actual field of innovation, so cities, for example, or ministers or ministries that have to run infrastructure projects, to work with the energy, with the telecom operators, and so on. I would say it is a mix, and the mix it depends on the background of the country, on the economy. So more advanced economies or more digitally advanced, like the UK one, for example. So the British public sector, I believe that all of the services there have at least one digital arm. So it's relatively mature digitally. So there is great enthusiasm, especially when it comes to things like blockchain. They really want to engage. Recently, the Bank of England itself coordinated projects, invited other partners, and so on and so forth. And they are also very ambitious. When it comes to countries whose public sector is not that digitally mature, it's again a mix. You can find, say, municipalities in which, let's say, the people who work there have very minimum digital skills. So in these cases, leadership is the factor number one that plays a role in order to advance projects. And if you don't have the leadership, then nothing is working. But there is also other small-scale good examples, and you can find this type of things literally anywhere. So small cities, even villages that happen to have really enthusiastic people sitting in key positions. In general, technology creates enthusiasm. I would say is overall positive. But in some cases, let's face it, there are also gray zones, or there are also people and organizations that are not that mature and have a fear.
Okay, and Ulisses, before I have the big question, because usually this fear is also about the sensitivity of the topics we are dealing with and privacy of data, so all the ethical challenges. Before we go ahead with your question, I'd like to see what our audience has thought about the first question we posed them. Which do you think is the main concern of the general public regarding the implementation of blockchain and AI systems within the public services? Let's see if we get the poll up. So technology, exactly. So the three options were, ethics and fairness, lack of understanding and transparency, or inability to question how services are being delivered. This from the perspective of the general public. Maybe it's not going to work, or is it working? So we have the lack of understanding and transparency as the first, the challenge from the public perspective. So we're talking about the citizen perspective, how they feel regarding the implementation of these type of technologies. But one of the challenges always, the transparency or the ethical values around that transparency. From your experience, what are the main challenges for the public sector when implementing emerging tech?
Well, the main challenge, of course, is the administration to get to know which is the real impact of technology in society. Because most of these technologies are created, launched into the use, and no one knows exactly what is happening. And of course, there is no legal framework. As there is no legal framework, everybody gains, because this is this river that with brave waters, that everybody is winning. So basically, what is happening is that we have governments that are unaware, or they are just analphabet in technology. So they just let people go and do the things. So you will never, ever let Facebook to go on live if it was a pill to deal with cancer. Because first you have a treatment in lab, then you go to a small pilot, then you go to a small pilot in humans, and then you have 5 or 6 pilots in clinical trials that may last few years, and then it goes live, right? So, and with technology, it's happening that you have a new group of a startup elsewhere. They bring this technology, they just let it go. There is no any law behind, so you just let it go, and that's it. And the government says, "Oh, beautiful." When the damage is done, this technology is updated and then replaced. It's abandoned and changed the name and has a new skin, and then you repeat the cycle again. And it's because the governments are unaware of technology. So, did you imagine your deputies or senators in the Congress in Spain aware of the value of blockchain? So they are clearly analphabet. So why they have to allow the use of any platform of blockchain to be in use in Spain or AI technology? So it's just, you don't know what is going on. There is any kind of ethical agreement. Is this transparent? No. It's just technology. And they don't know. And it's in every single device. So the main issue is that they don't know. And as they don't know, whether they are really unaware, or maybe you may find one that is educated, but for the rest. And also, what is clear is that most of the population is just adopting the technology without knowing what's going on. Right? So, what about to have a technology that you know that is very useful, but will kill 20,000 persons a year? You will allow it? No. So why you allow the use of cars?
Depending.
No, not depending.
Yes. If the 20,000 people gets killed like after 4 years, after
an
election, so they don't care. They don't have a strategy longer than the next elections.
The first year. So cars.
The first year.
The first year. There are people. They are killing people every day, and they are polluting the air, and they are causing delays, and so. And now you have this experiment in Madrid. So people is shouting because they cannot drive into central Madrid because they are not aware about pollution. So it's about comfort or the damage on the environment and society. So people just want to be comfortable and they don't care about the future damage or what you're inheriting to people. And it's clear that it's happening is that most of the engineers, at least in Spain and in other countries, they don't have any course of technology. How many engineers are here? So how many of you had ever an ethics course? No? So you don't know anything about ethics. So you don't know anything about the ethics of the use of technology. So same with the government.
Because nobody speaks about that. There's no strategy. They don't care too much. Whenever there's a new technology, everybody speaks about the technology, but not about the social consequences of that technology. Probably that's the problem.
But if you read Aristotle, he was already talking about.
I know.
So, but that's the problem. So you have ignorant people that use the things without care.
And then we make the same mistakes again and again. And with each technology happens the same.
I do believe that this bloom of blockchain and this kind of technology is just a blooming that is created in the labs, move very fast into society, but no one knows the exact damage. You don't know how much it costs to create one of these elements of security. In terms of ecological tools, you don't know. And no one tells you how much it costs. If you know the aggregate cost of creating each one of the tokens, then you have to start to rethink. And if you add the cost of the creation of each one of the tokens to the security, maybe you are not so sure that you want to adopt the technology.
Maybe Boyd can also help us here because he's been working with cities for many years. What has been your experience? Do local governments have the necessary resources, the technical infrastructure, the internal knowledge to understand the opportunities and the challenges of emerging tech like AI and blockchain? And I know your specialty is blockchain. What is the reality you find on the ground?
As a general rule, absolutely not. And in fact, I don't really think it's fair to expect them to either. And do we really want globally to invest in national and local government capacity to stay at the same pace of technological change as the technologists in society and actually be ahead of the curve and regulate things before they come out and, create laws around them before they come out and actually be able to create standards before they come out because they're ahead of everyone else? I don't think that's the role of government. And I think it's sort of unfair to expect that they are the pioneers of creating the tech. What I think we're seeing we're in a phase, at least, so I work in smart cities. So my opinion is that cities over time are increasingly improving their internal capacity to at least understand emerging tech. Now, it's not ubiquitous. We are having this debate before the talk today about Spain versus other parts of the world. And as a general rule, no offense, I live in Spain, but Spain is not in the government sector very pioneering in embracing new innovation and new tech. It's more conservative and a little behind. But I go to Singapore all the time. Singapore has a whole office of GovTech, and those guys are crazy good. He's been to Dubai recently. Dubai has a vision to be the world's first blockchain-powered city entirely in the next couple of years. They have 21 blockchain projects being managed internally inside the government. So to say that local or national governments are incapable of innovating or embracing new technology is wrong. But to assume that our local or national governments are going to be on top of new technologies as fast as everyone else, I think is ridiculous to expect and would never happen. In a lot of spaces I'm looking at or I play in, like around the sharing economy, we have one of Spain's leading thinkers in the sharing economy right here, by the way. Sharing economy is a good example of where, peer-to-peer technologies, which is kind of what blockchain is as well. We could talk about that. But peer-to-peer technologies emerged on the scene, and they exploded so fast, way before governments could figure out what the heck was going on. And for a while, they just let it go. But actually, I think that's okay. I mean, you have to kind of treat some of these things as a sandbox and learn from them. Obviously, some things are potentially, fatal. And so you need to intervene faster. But, Uber, we can all talk about Uber. Iomob, my project is in mobility, and we talk about Uber all the time because everyone asks us about Uber. Uber emerged before cities could figure out what the heck was going on or even think about how to regulate them. And so they had to react. I don't think it was realistic they would have predicted Uber to come and they would have some regulation around it. Same with Airbnb. Airbnb showed up. Cities didn't even have any clue what was going on until it was actually already impacting the city. We live in Barcelona. We all know there's been a lot of conflicts with Airbnb. But actually, Barcelona was sort of an early pioneer and they were late because the impacts were already pretty prevalent, but they were early compared to most local governments around the world in figuring out what was happening and then trying to come up with policies to control it so it wouldn't have so much negative impact on society. So basically what I'm saying, I have less faith in national governments as a general rule about anything. And I think most innovation in government is happening at a local level, in the smart cities level. And I think we're not going to see a lot of world-changing technology emerge from city government. But I think, here we have Francesca Bria. Some of you know her. We have some very smart people working in governments, especially in local governments, that are trying to promote a more digital agenda, an inclusive agenda with digital tech.
I may agree on a few of the things, but disagree on the basic point. Okay. And the basic point is that in Europe, we have a different way to understand the ethics behind the governments. So we are not a liberal capitalism as the United States. So we believe in a kind of democracy that will respect the rights of people that have been here, and we will adapt the legislation to the innovation. So that's why we need the governments to lead.
I totally agree with you on that. We don't disagree.
Basically, Airbnb and Uber are one of the most dangerous things I ever thought in my life, because this idea of cooperative technology, economies, or sharing technologies that are in principle good, they are creating big modifications of the cities in a way. So my brother works as an Uber driver in Mexico City. I'm Mexican. So I can see the way they are destructing the rights of the workers, the drivers in Mexico. So I can tell you exactly how it works. And I know the drivers here in Barcelona, and I don't know why someone is supporting Cabify or Uber in Barcelona. I don't believe it. And what Airbnb did for the city has an effect. Maybe it's just a personal account. Is that My sons cannot have a house in town. They have to live outside. So I don't like this kind of economy that brings that came from this free capitalism. And I like, and I expect that Europe will bring an ethical view on the use of technology that is different from the States and different from the Chinese. I will never bring criticism from the Chinese without knowing the ethics of the Chinese. What I'm clear is that knowing the ethics of the capitalism in the States, compared with the capitalism in Europe or the kind of democracies, capitalist democracies we have here, I reject this idea of the free, spontaneous growing of technology without control. Because, and it's clear that what happened in the 60s in the States with the National Drug Agency should happen with technology. So the Americans and in all the world, we don't allow any company to bring drugs just for free. And that's clear. And if we are doing that with that technology that cures and saves lives, we are not, we should not tolerate that it happens with technology because it damages. If not, just see what happened in your country with Cambridge Analytics and what happened in Andalusia with Vox. It's the same kind of guys doing the same kind of things. And we know that this kind of technology and control it will modify the relations of society within the whole, because no one is able to understand the potential use of that. That's very dramatic. And I think that it's very good that we have these debates with the creators of technology, but now you need to have pilots where you can create these things for doing good.
Thanks, Ulis. I think there's always a lot, there are a lot of to discuss there when it comes to ethics, and also, what is the role of government in terms of speed, and I think what Boyd was trying to get to is like expecting that government can act at the same speed and imagine what is going to happen.
But they should. Actually, they have a big responsibility because like many of the things we do, they have a really huge impact in the future. And with the guys, usually we don't think too much. We just do things. So I think they should be there. Like, how many of you here do you work for the public administration? Not that bad. Usually, when I go to a lot of it's okay. But when I go to a lot of events, like public administration, they just don't show. They don't come to these kind of things. And if it's technical, if it's like they are never there. I was like. A month ago, I was in a conference with Pedro Sanchez, and like I just went to the room and it was full of people because we want to discuss about economy, about the impact of technology in economy. It was quite interesting. But then, like Pedro Sanchez talked, and after he talked, everybody left the room.
Yeah, that's what happens.
And it was like all the entrepreneurs, the people like building things, and we were just talking alone. But it's fine. But then I think that we should break this barrier between entrepreneurs and public administration, and we should talk to each other. I've seen that in many countries already. So they are doing that. They are just talking to each other and collaborating.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. And by the way, I don't think Uber is cooperative economy at all. Yeah, it's just the opposite. But what they do, it's collaborative economy, but not Uber at all. But I agree with you that they have this responsibility. So yes, they have a hard job. It is. At least it should be.
And that takes me to my next set of questions, which is around entrepreneurship and opportunities and GovTech and so on. And before just centering this topic, I'd like to ask Christina about, what are the main opportunities? What are the main areas? You already mentioned very briefly for AI and blockchain, but where do you think, innovation is really happening when it comes to public services?
Can you hear me? It's working? All right. Where innovation is happening, I would say when it comes to, again, the more mature cities and governments. There is a trend of indeed working together with these companies, and I really like the idea of talking about smart mobility because this is a prime area where this thing is happening, we do see cases in which cities lead innovation. I know it's hard to imagine, but because of the nature of some projects, it maybe not be around AI. Blockchains, again, currently is about trials in general and only about the really forward-looking governments working on it. But if we look at examples like smart mobility, for example, we see local authorities leading innovation because an Uber that wants to launch the new e-scooter services in LA, for example, they have to work with the local authority in order to arrange space for the parking, in order to ask for the government to share data from public transport, because when you look at your app, in order for this app to be usable, you want to have access not only to Uber's data, not only to the e-scooter company's data, but also to public transport data. Or to the operator of the smart parking. So cities have a unique chance, and I know this is quite ambitious for a lot of cases to happen. But let's face it, if we move or if we look at the good practices, then there are opportunities. So they have this unique chance to coordinate innovation, to help companies really do projects that will turn out to services that improve our daily lives. If I could categorize this, I would say everything around the concept of open data. So cities can coordinate innovation around when pointing to companies how they should use the data, what type of data, and where the limits sit in this particular field. So I believe this is a great opportunity for cities again. So it's difficult to talk about governments because they're more complex structures and they're not always that cooperative or easy to categorize as well. But at the same time, I believe it's not easy to say that the public sector is not moving or adopt that pessimism.
Thank you. While we were talking, I was looking at our poll on where our audience sees the potential for emergent tech in public service. Was it moving? Actually, I was last week at the ICT 2018 in Austria, which is a European Commission event, and there was a lot of hype around blockchain and health comes here first. But then we also, when it comes to AI, we hear a lot on news about policing and the new system the UK is implementing, but we also have heard before about the system they've used in US. I always wonder if the UK will do the same mistakes, but we'll have to see. But with the Iomob and also the work you've been doing on entrepreneurship, I want to go back to this question: what is the role of entrepreneurs when introducing new services, like in your case with mobility, and working with the governments? Where do you see the opportunities there when working with the governments?
This is where I would actually sort of try to incorporate the comments of my panelists, in the sense that while I don't believe it's appropriate to expect that taxpayers invest in building the internal government capability to innovate at the pace of the private sector, this is my opinion. I do believe that cities in particular have a really powerful mechanism through procurement and other strategies to engage the private sector and entrepreneurs In fact, my book from 2 years ago was called The Emergence of the Urban Entrepreneur, and it was specifically looking at how cities are interacting with entrepreneurs in new and powerful ways to transform cities, not so much in the negative ways we've already talked about, but in ways that are sort of productive. Barcelona was a pioneer in trying to do procurement for innovation through City Mart, where they actually had 6 different challenges. And instead of predetermining the specifications and having this bureaucratic RFP process, they said, here's a budget, here are some challenges. Private sector, come up with the best ideas, and whichever best idea comes through, we'll actually vote for that with our money and we'll invest in it. So we're not predetermining the outcome. We're encouraging, inspiring innovators to come up with great ideas. And I think that's what we're seeing in the last several years, to me, is a really interesting thing, is this interplay between the innovators and the citizens and cities themselves. And increasingly cities, including the one we're living in here in Barcelona, are growing in their appreciation for the role that the private sector and the citizens can actually play in helping co-create solutions, and growing types of mechanisms that can be used, like procurement for innovation. There's some other really cool things. There's this project in Amsterdam I love called AMS Institute, where they have this, I call it the 5P collaboration of people, professors, private partnerships, where they engage with different actors, and they create this entity with universities where local citizens join masters and other programs to co-create solutions to make the city more sustainable. And they let the students test their ideas on parts of their urban infrastructure, and if they work, they help them turn them into companies and everything. In Boston, there's a service called the New Urban Mechanics. Again, I want to repeat, my point is not that the public sector can't innovate, but I think the role of the public sector is more around enabling and collaborating with innovators and helping to drive innovation to solve real problems in urban areas, for example. So in Boston, they have this thing called New Urban Mechanics, founded by Nigel Jacobs, that it says, you know what? We can't, as a city, always know what problems there are in society or how to fix them, but our residents are really capable of that. So we're going to crowdsource ideas for solving problems we don't even know exist. So how do they work? They have residents have an office to go to, New Urban Mechanics, when they identify a problem and they have a potential solution for that problem. They bring it to the office. They say, here's a problem we've discovered. Here's our proposed solution. What do you think? If the office likes it, they actually help them incubate that solution and test it on that part of the city. So I think we need to see more of this, and I think increasingly cities around the world are embracing this idea of collaborative innovation with the local startup community, with global startups, and sometimes with companies too. I do want to just comment that I don't believe, my last book was called Post-Capitalist Entrepreneurship, so I don't believe in the US version of just let everything go. But I don't believe it's fair to expect that cities can anticipate everything that's going to come and how it might negatively affect society. I think sometimes you have to let it happen or create sandboxes, which is another similar idea we're talking about. A lot of cities around the world are coming up with this idea of a sandbox where, okay, somebody wants to do something disruptive and crazy, and maybe it's going to be great, maybe it's going to be terrible, we don't know. Let's give them an opportunity to test it in a really small neighborhood in a certain area and evaluate what happens before they launch it throughout the whole city. So I think there's a way to handle both.
They're going to fuck up anyway. So imagine Facebook. You can try Facebook in a university and it works fine. And then when you go at the higher level, then happens.
Sorry, 2 things. Basically, there is a subtle distinction that you are making that do not exist. So cities and state are the same. So there's just different of scale. So the representation of the state at local level is the city. So basically, you build the organic state or the country, in the case of Catalonia, through the cities and the residents. So basically, I'm not thinking in the state as Madrid far away or Washington, D.C. far away from L.A. That is one of my favorite cities because my grandfather used to live there. But the other thing is that in Europe, the idea of sandbox is called living labs. And living labs have been, there's a kind of cooperative environment where these kind of societies are already there, and it has been pushed from Finland to the European Union and then all over things. So basically, maybe what we need is to know exactly which are the amount of resources that we have and use it appropriately. So, sandboxes are good, but maybe living labs are more interesting because they are already in the cities and they are working. So, and I believe that living labs is the good place to incubate entrepreneurship for the cities, and then if they go well, grow globally. That's basically the thing. And I also believe that universities, if they are well furnished with resources, will create this kind of living labs. It's not happening in Spain. So in Spain, we don't have enough resources to have living labs in the universities. So then we have to move to the cities or elsewhere to make these kind of trials.
We have a problem with universities, but it's huge. I made a talk about Bitcoin, about blockchain, like in a house full of people, around 200 people. And then I told them, okay, whoever wants to work with blockchain, we're hiring people, we're hiring students. So anyone here, like last year, students want to start their, like doing innovation, just come to me. Just came one. So that's the kind of people that's in the university today. And we have a big problem with that.
Alex, that takes me to the question I wanted to ask you. The entry point, when we're talking about technologies like blockchain and AI, is the entry point with these technologies to get into, to be entrepreneur, to create new solutions? Is it too high, or is it about not having the right skills or not preparing the people with the right skills for the opportunities that are out there?
Well, like as an entrepreneur, a lot of times I get the question like, how do you motivate the people that work for you? And it's like, no, I don't do that. I don't motivate people. They have to come motivated from home. I don't care about that. And usually this technology is hard. And so what? It's too difficult, yes. And what? Life is difficult, so deal with it. And probably that's the problem. It's like we are facing with a new generation of people that most of them, it's like, oh, this is too difficult. I will do something else because probably I will get paid anyway. So I don't care too much. And this is too difficult. I don't want to face this. And yeah, the entry point is quite high, but then the reward is always is also really high. That's why I was talking about a little bit about probably the university that I remember when I was young that everything was so hard. Nobody worried about that. And now like everybody complains about everything. So yes, the entry point is quite high, like with every new technology, and it will go to worse. It's not improving anyway because technology is like the gap between basics and the technology we're using with blockchain. By the way, it's like every day it gets higher. So yes, the entry point is quite higher, and that's going to be a problem. It's really hard to find. He knows perfectly, like hire people with a few experience. Anyway, with blockchain, it's really hard right now. It's no way. So I'm not really optimistic.
Okay, and we're actually running out of time, and I want to open the questions to the public. Do we have time for questions? Yeah. So we had more questions to discuss, but as you can see, everyone is really excited. But I want to open the questions to the public. Do we have 10 minutes, I think, for questions? My colleague has got the micro if someone wants to ask. No questions, or should we keep going? Any questions? Any questions from collaborative economy, Albert? No. No? Okay. We can keep going then. Yeah?
Yeah, I agree that you need motivated people. Maybe you are not looking at the right place. So I don't believe that no one that goes to a conference is motivated to do things because they are already working.
Yeah, so, you're right.
So is the wrong place is the people that goes to here.
No, I went to the university.
Yeah,
so the university asked me to talk at the university.
Yeah, but the people that goes to the university is not the right people. That's of course. So if you have 100 people in any classroom, you know that there is one that will go to MIT, 10 that are brilliant enough to do things, and the rest are good professionals. But that's it. So you need this 10% of people, and they will never attend to a conference because they will contact you directly. So that's the kind of. So you have to. I was in Beijing teaching was 2012, and there was a QR and 10 questions. So basically, the QR was saying, if you answer these 10 questions, call this number. And they were recruiting for the Blue Army for China. And I read and I stopped in the third question. So, of course, people that has this interest to do really nice things, they will go to that kind of things, not for public. So if not, you just send your CV to Anderson or whatever consultancy, and that's it, because you are a computer scientist.
We don't do marketing. We don't do human resources like usual. Basically, what we do is like we have a team of really nice people that they're really good at what they do, and then we publish what they do. We open source what we do, and that attracts the people. And then, as you say, they call me.
Yes. That's the way. So basically, there's one thing that is related with the long tail history. So now we have more and more new degrees with new, very fancy names, and you lead to very nice degrees. But those guys are not really interesting. So what you want is those guys that are doing good maths, good physics, good basic things. Maybe they have some interest in philosophy or law. Those are the guys that you want. But the one that goes to the latest degree with the fanciest name, well, they're maybe good, but they're not the guys that you are looking for the border.
We don't care about degrees at all. We don't look at titles. It's like...
But no. We had this discussion with Google once. So what you want is people that has the perfect profile of a good, educated people. And they are...
But I was a bad student.
Yeah, everybody's a bad student.
But just on purpose, look, I decided to get a 5 on each because I thought that more than a 5 was a waste of time, that I could be doing something else. So I had my career all with 5s.
Yeah, but so you don't go to MIT. You can go to do internship. So that's it.
And as we move, because I also want to keep taking us back to our topic. And before this, we were talking about the hype, and there's a lot of hype around these technologies, and we are running out of time. So I really would like to know how, I can start with you, Alex. We were talking about exactly about this. How do we differentiate when we're talking about blockchain and AI and what's really happening and not happening? What's the hype and what is really happening on the ground at Spain level?
Well, at Spain level and European level, I would say sorry, but this is hype. And then we have many conversations about blockchain that are really deep and they are not happening here. Like meetings, we do a lot of meetings that nobody knows about, like 20, 50, 60 people, and everybody just will have one about digital identity here in Barcelona. It's by invitation only. So, and only people that publish papers and they work on it, they can come. So, and I think there's a lot of hype, and probably in a few time nobody will be speaking about blockchain. That's good. It's like nobody's speaking about HTTP, TCP/IP, or these kind of technologies because they are part of our lives. And then you will have your mobile application, and probably will have blockchain on the back, but nobody cares because it's just technology. What we need is solutions to problems we have. So right now, I don't know why everybody's speaking just about the technology and not the solutions.
So are we focusing too much on the technology and not on the problems? Like Boyd was saying, why don't we get citizens to talk about what problems they are facing, and then we talk about how can we solve these problems? No, is that?
Yeah, I think.
Are we putting the energy on the wrong?
If we talk about government and tech, I would say yes to that. If you talk about the general hype around like blockchain or AI, I would say. I agree with Alex. There's like multiple levels of conversations happening depending on who's involved and what their backgrounds are. And, there's been a massive hype machine around blockchain. Then most of the people that are hyping it don't know anything about it and are just trying to figure out a way to make money somehow. But there are very core, deep, passionate people in blockchain that are helping to create the foundations of something I really believe will transform our world in very powerful ways going forward, but it's going to take a while. I think sometimes people think it's got to happen overnight. But, one thing I would maybe slightly disagree with Alex on, not just because, like he says, we need to talk more about the solutions, and I agree with that. I think the problem we have right now is there are very few scalable solutions that are leveraging blockchain right now. So it's harder to be focusing on those. So sometimes we have to talk about the underlying technology because we don't yet have a lot of proven solutions out in the marketplace that are in consumers' hands on their cell phone right now, but we're moving in that direction. I think so. Our company, we're starting pilots in January with real cities with our technology. So we're getting there as a blockchain community. We're getting there. We're just not there yet.
And Christina, when you're doing research, because you're analyzing what's happening within the ecosystem across Europe, how do you how do you make the separation between what is really happening or what's just talking about something that you want to do as a government, but is not really happening on the ground?
I would distinguish that into things I would put on paper or write or publish, and in things I use to understand what is actually happening. And blockchain is a good example because far more things are happening in labs, in trials, than in actual projects. And by actual projects, I mean with actual real users, as in customers. Or it can be citizens in the context of government and cities. Where to start? I wanted to touch upon various things. Perhaps I can talk a bit about emerging tech in general. So starting from a nice idea like blockchain is and reaching to the maturity level or commercial maturity, or making people feel that it's actually
blockchain
usable.
Should not have a commercial maturity. Blockchain is about collaboration. That's probably one of the things that most of the governments, they don't get.
But companies are selling that, selling blockchain platforms.
Yeah, and that's completely wrong. Everything we do is open source. So basically, we do digital identity, and there should be no business model in digital identity.
I wanted to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, as well. Sorry.
Go on.
Sorry. So in general, so not about blockchain or AI, but in general, from R&D, so from research and development and innovation to achieving a real life product, there is a big gap. In some cases, I don't know, some of you might be familiar with the story of iPad and tablets. So just because the timing was not right, somebody else did that after a very long time and it was commercially successful. So tablet was not launched at the time of Apple decided to launch iPad. It was an idea that was very, very old. And at some point, some poor guys decided to launch that in the market, and it was a complete failure. Why? Because of various reasons. So conditions, the circumstances were not there to make this a successful product eventually. Perhaps the same thing is happening with blockchain.
But blockchain is not a commercial product. It's a protocol. So
wait.
This does not apply, I think.
Wait. So with blockchain, the very idea, again, is great. But I really doubt that we are kind of ready for that. It's great. There is a really interesting project, let's say, of many companies under the umbrella of a foundation called the Sovereign Foundation. I believe you are familiar. And in brief, the general idea of that is that imagine yourself using your smartphone and all the applications with all the different passwords, with all the different usernames, or perhaps imagine yourself going to the bank wanting to open a bank account or wanting to, say, ask benefit from the local government, from the state. So all of these interactions that make your digital or other form of identity, say, different in different places. So what this foundation is doing, and by foundation we mean people like IBM, Cisco behind that, other research, universities, startups.
The Ethereum community is doing the same for free and creating a standard that...
Wait.
But it's not controlled by anyone, I mean.
I know. And that's what leaders like IBM and Cisco and perhaps Microsoft are involved in.
Leaders in what?
In their thing. in their market.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, they are not leaders.
They are commercial
From the tech
leaders.
perspective, they are really dinosaurs. I went once to an IBM. It was the CEO of IBM invited me to their headquarters in Spain.
Over here in the audience somewhere, the CEO of IBM.
I hope not. And I just went there, and then she showed me one of big computer and say, "Oh, you have a museum here. It's amazing." And it was not a museum; it was the last thing that they were launching. So, no, they are not leaders. They are really far away. That gap that I talked about, it's growing and growing. And all these big companies, they are leaders in talking about, but when it comes to doing something,
I have a different view. But let me first finish about this identity
I'm speaking
thing.
only about technology, by the way.
So anyway, blockchain as an idea. And if this concept of self-sovereign identity, they call it like that, is realized, then you get all of your identity and you give access to anybody you want to, without needing to replicate all these different identities, without having your data stolen.
We also building that, I know, yeah.
Yeah, in order for marketing and purposes like that. So this is really revolutionary.
May I? So basically, we don't need no one to save our life, not sovereignty, no one. So the only thing is that everybody that is using technology respects the law. So we have a new law that obliges anyone using your data to do that. So I don't want IBM, not this ONG or whatever, save my life. The only thing that I want is that someone producing technology is respecting the law. And if they don't respect the law, what I want is the government to put them all in jail. That's basically the only thing. I don't need no one to save my life. No one. Not IBM, not, I don't know.
Yes, me.
So I don't
the
need
difference is that they're building some technology they think they can sell or they can make money with. That's what corporations do. I'm building technology that I think as a citizen I want to have. So I'm thinking about me. I'm thinking about my friends. I'm thinking about the people surrounding me. So I'm building this self-sovereign identity, as you say, because I want to get back my data because it's mine. Should. And what we're building is legal because we know GDPR, so we are really concerned about that.
But it's not only that someone returns your data and erases your data, but it's also because you are fans of technology, you are also entitled to ask for the disaggregation of your data in any learning program. Disaggregation of your data. That's the most important thing. It doesn't care if your data is erased. You need to be disaggregated. So basically, if they make an orange juice from your data, you want the juice returned to you. They don't need to keep your juice. That's basically the thing. And I don't really. So let me tell you. So I'm an AI guy. So and this is a scientific discipline, 60 years old. What we don't, I'm not understanding at all is why Facebook, IBM, Google, all these five guys are creating an alliance in the States, paid by the States, or in a foundation that will save a lot of taxes in the States, for creating ethics and AI. So you give the wolf the keys, right? So we don't need them to save our lives. What we need is only to respect the law. But they say, come on, I will respect the US law.
I have a provocative question.
So they basically put the servers 200 kilometers outside the continental borders of Europe. But that's it. So really, there is many ways to treat the law in an absolute way. And of course, Europe is so small economically that they won't fight. Or they try to fight, of course. But there is not the thing. So we have to, ourselves, the citizens, if we are able to understand the value of our data and the value of our democracy and our laws, we have to fight for that. They won't fight for us. They will pay lawyers with a very good salaries to defend their rights and their privilege of making more money with their paper. And that's the difference. The main difference is that we educate people to be free. And freedom is about to know that you have rights, but before the rights, you have obligations. And one of the obligations is to fight for your rights.
Completely agree with the final statement, but the way to get there, I would have some fair disagreements. The provocative question, out of curiosity, would be: would you like a drug company to save your life?
No.
No.
Then this would take us to prehistory ages.
No. And as a matter of fact, I have a fight. I have a fight with drugs companies. So basically, there are many drugs that will save your life. Definitely, that's good. But most of the drugs are made for make your life chronic. So you live with your pill many years. And when you arrive to my age, you start to be polymedicated. So you have many daily pills. So that's the main difference. So they are not, so of course, they are making a lot of research on creating new molecules. That's good. But they are not for curing you, just to keep you in an homeostatic system. And that's the main thing.
I'm sure they'll challenge you on that. So, leaving on that note, we have to close, but I would invite you to approach our speakers during our network that we'll do on the 4th floor. So, thank you very much. It's been really interesting. I wish we had more time. I was having some fun, but thank you again, and we can keep the conversation downstairs.